If you are looking for the yearn, oh my God, I love you, but I do not want to hear about your boy problems right now. I want to overthrow this racist government. Is that too much to ask? Let's talk about and the author's choice that killed this series. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the video. I'm happy to be here, but so sad to talk about what we're going to be talking about. We are going to be talking about a young adult fantasy written starting in 2017 that just finished a couple months ago with the final book coming out that I truly believe was cursed. So many things went wrong with this series, some of it out of the author's control, some of it by the author herself, and it's complicated to talk about because I loved some of the books and then things went off the rails. I kind of went to bat for this series when it got called out for things we will speak about. This is the Black Witch series. We're gonna kind of go over the history of it. What is this book even about? What is its controversy? Leading into some spoilery parts, but I will give you fair warning for that. This is just so hard to talk about because I really enjoyed my time with the first couple of books. The yearning, we're gonna go into it, but the yearning in this book is impeccable. Like, if you are asking where is the yearn, it lies in the first 2 to 3 books of the Black Witch series. But is it worth it to read the series now knowing what I know? I'm not so sure. So let's talk about it. I tried to structure some notes. It's a really rainy day, so if it looks gloomy, it is. It is gloomy and kind of matches my mood because so much potential. So much potential. In we go. The Black Witch Chronicles. Okay, I've got my notes. Let's go. Starting off with, what is this series about? This is the Black Witch Chronicles by Laurie Forrest, who I don't know, but seems to be just very nice. She's a mom. She's not really online except to post about when she adopts a cat from a shelter. So that's that. Okay. The first book, The Black Witch, came out in 2017. There are 5 full-length books, but then there are also 3 novellas. So I believe there's like a 1.5 and a 2.5, things like that. Okay. Some prequels, etc. I actually haven't read those. So, right. But there are 5 main novels. The first book, The Black Witch, came out in 2017, and the last one came out just a few months ago in 2025. But what is the first book about? I'm just going to read you from Goodreads. It has 47,000 ratings, and it sits at a 4.1. This came out May 2017. It is 600 pages. Ellerin Gardner is the granddaughter of the last prophesied Black Witch, Carnissa Gardner, who drove back the enemy forces and saved the Gardnerian people during the Realm War. But while she is the absolute spitting image of her famous grandmother, Ellerin is utterly devoid of power in a society that prizes magical ability above all else. When she's granted the opportunity to pursue her lifelong dream of becoming an apothecary, Ellerin joins her brother at the prestigious Verpax University to embrace a destiny of her own, free from the shadow of her grandmother's legacy. But she soon realizes that the university, which admits all manner of people, is a treacherous place for the granddaughter of the Black Witch. As evil looms on the horizon and the pressure to live up to her heritage builds, everything Ellerin thought she knew will be challenged and torn away. Her best hope of survival may be among the most unlikely band of rebels, if only she can find the courage to trust those she's been taught to fear. So, okay, we're going to go into it a little bit more in the next section, but a little more information about the book. This takes place in a magical realm where there are a bunch of different magical races. So, Selkies, Fae, and the society that Ellerin is raised in is incredibly racist. She, however, is raised with her brother and her uncle in a very secluded spot. She lives like out on a farm. She doesn't really see many people at all, but if she does, it's usually her grandmother who just reinforces these beliefs that mages are superior, all the other races are not to be trusted, each race has a special stereotype, you know. So that is kind of Ellerin's background. And so when she goes to this university that is culturally diverse, she has a really hard time. And this in particular, this shock and prejudice and unlearning that she has to kind of go through is the key factor of part 2 of this video, the beginning of the Black Witch curse, which is its main controversy that occurred before the book was even published, inspiring many articles, a lot of discourse. This is before Book Talk, really, 2017? Was it? Kind of. It was before the explosion of Book Talk, okay? So really, it started a huge amount of discourse about the toxicity of the book community, specifically on Twitter. So let us dive into the curse of the Black Witch. As I mentioned, this book came out in 2017, in May. But in March, before this book had hit the shelves, I will read to you my notes of what happened. A lot of my information is being pulled from an article called The Toxic Drama on YA Twitter by Kat Rosenfield. So in March 2017, a book blogger named Shauna Sinyard, who now goes as Shauna Morgan, I believe, published a roughly 9,000 word advanced review of The Black Witch, calling it the most dangerous, offensive book I have ever read. The review's author claimed that the novel included multiple forms of bigotry, including racism, ableism, and homophobia. So Shauna was not only a book reviewer, but I also believe she was a bookseller. That's how she got the book in advance, is she was working at a bookstore. And she had a pretty big following for the time, and she posted this review, okay? Some of her examples, and I'm gonna go into all of these. She pulled certain quotes, including how Elloren criticizes a magical race as being not a pure race like us because they're more accepting of intermarriage. And she also, and this is a big one that a lot of people were reblogging, she reacts negatively when her brother comes out to her. Keep all these things in mind, okay? I'm gonna read to you a bit of the Vulture article, okay? The hype train for The Black Witch was derailed in mid-March when Shauna Sinyard, or Shauna Morgan, a bookstore employee and blogger who writes primarily about YA, had a different take. The Black Witch is the most dangerous, offensive book I've ever read. It was ultimately written for white people. And Shauna is white. Just putting that out there. It was ultimately written for white people. It was written for the type of white person who considers themselves to be not racist and thinks that they deserve recognition and praise for treating POC like they are actually human. She says the quote about intermarriage, and she says, "Yeah, you just read that with your own 2 eyes. This is one of the times my jaw dropped in horror and I had to walk away from this book." So the review has since been scrapped from the internet. Her entire blog is gone, but the review essentially consisted of her cherry picking quotes where, like I mentioned, the entire point of this book is that Elloren is unlearning the racist rhetoric that she was raised with. So in the beginning, she says crazy shit and people are like, "Elloren, that's fucked up." And she eventually, spoiler, is like, "Oh yeah, shit. I was raised by idiots." So for her to say things like that, that's the point in the beginning. She also, to go back to the coming out scene, so she quotes a part where her brother comes out as gay, and her reaction is basically, "Oh shit, this is bad." Okay? Why? Because in their society, being gay is basically a death sentence. You will be exiled, you will be shunned. Elloren is not going to be like, "Oh my god, I'm so happy for you." That's not going to be her reaction because it's a scary thing to be gay in this society. So her reaction is basically like, what do we do? It's kind of actually reminds me of the scene from Dairy Girls when Claire comes out and her friends are like, "No, go back in." "I don't want you to come out, go back in."
"And I'm trying to come out here."
Well, don't come out, go back in.
"I don't want to go back in."
It's very similar to that arc, actually, because she supports her brother, she loves her brother, but she's also like, that's a really terrifying thing for you in this society, you know? So if Shauna actually read this book, which I'm like not completely convinced that she did, what would be the correct reaction? And now this was one of the first reviews. It was certainly the biggest name to review this book, and this was, again, not out yet. So these are the only quotes that people have seen from this book. Again, quoting from the Vulture article. Based almost solely on Sinyard's opinion, the novel became the object of sustained, aggressive opposition in the weeks leading up to its release. Its publisher, Harlequin Teen, was bombarded with angry emails demanding they pull the book. So not even publish the book, right? People who have not read it do not want this book published because of this review. The Black Witch's Goodreads rating dropped to an abysmal 1.7 stars, thanks to mass-coordinated campaign of one-star reviews, mostly from people who admittedly have not read it. On a debut not published book, okay? And this is where it gets even weirder. This Vulture article was being written as this was unfolding, okay? So the author, Rosenfield, reached out to Sinyard, who, quote, politely declined my request for an interview in what seemed like a routine exchange, but then announced on Twitter that our interaction had, quote, scared her, leading to backlash from community members who insisted that the as yet unwritten article would endanger her life. Rumors quickly spread that I had threatened or harassed her. Several influential authors instructed their followers not to speak to me, and one librarian and member of the Newbery Award Committee tweeted at Vulture nearly a dozen times accusing them of enabling a washed-up YA author engaging in a personalized crusade against the entire publishing community. And disclosure, she had written a YA novel in 2012 and 2014, the author of this. So this was so Twitter in 2017, and I feel like it is TikTok present day now, where people can just say shit and point a finger and everyone will believe it. No evidence, no screenshots, nothing. So the author of this article basically emailed the book reviewer being like, I'm writing an article about this, could you comment? And Sinyard posted to her thousands of followers that this woman is harassing me. I'm scared for my life is what she has used. Again, no proof. That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay? This clearly to me wasn't about the book. Like, this was about a book reviewer with a huge ego and a victim complex. And when those two get mixed, that's really dangerous. And I really think that Laurie Forrest and the Black Witch Chronicles were just kind of collateral damage. They were just being hit by strays. Like, it could have been any other book. And the article goes on to talk about how anybody who stood up for this book was immediately labeled a racist. They were comparing Laurie, again, like with these minimal quotes from a book that most people have never read at this point because it's not out. People were calling her a Nazi sympathizer. It was absolutely bonkers what was occurring. And again, this is a debut author who has just her book isn't even out yet. And she's got a 1.7 on Goodreads. Okay, a little bit more from the Vulture article. Mimi, which is a pseudonym, okay? Mimi, a teen vlogger who had once been so excited about The Black Witch, was among those who urged others to avoid the book, writing on her website and Twitter about the emotional pain it caused her. She still hasn't read it and doesn't plan to. She feels that Sinyard's review tells her all she needs to know. And in the wake of the book's release, Mimi is upset by the lack of response from Harlequin and galled by the descriptions of the novel as pro-diversity and anti-prejudice. That's poking fun at all of us. Like, we did all this for nothing. Like, we did all this as in posting tweets about how Laurie Forrest is a Nazi sympathizer because she wrote that being gay in a homophobic society is maybe not something to celebrate when you first find out about it. Now, there was one good review. This was by Caricakes Review. This was written by the editor Vicky Smith, and she says that Elloren, again, our main character, undergoes a monumental change throughout the course of the novel. She argued that Elloren's slow pace of transformation was realistic and made narrative sense for the first entry in a multi-book series. After it came out, most reviewers agree that it took a firm stance against prejudice, and Elloren's long slog in the direction of enlightenment is a realistic depiction of the process by which an indoctrinated person begins to expand her worldview. And ironically, a common criticism of the book is that its message of tolerance is too heavy-handed. So this reviewer, and then the people who just blindly listened to the reviewer, were complaining that this book was racist. But now the people who have read the book are complaining that the book is too heavy-handed with its anti-racism rhetoric. So, and where is Laurie in all of this? Keeping quiet. Again, to go from an absolute nobody even knows about your book, right? This was going to be a pretty low-key release to being one of the most talked about books on book Twitter, and it all being crazy negative about you being a Nazi sympathizer and a homophobe. Okay? Here's again from Vulture. For her part, Laurie Forrest was aware of the protests and cautious in how she talks about them. Responding to a question via email, she wrote, "My publishing house and I felt that it was important to listen to the discussion, and we were respectful of people's opinions and the debate. Published books belong to the readers, and readers should feel comfortable being honest about their views." But she also says her book's pro-diversity message is genuine. The Black Witch explores what it's like to grow up in a closed-minded culture, and its message is that people who may have been raised with prejudiced views can change for the better, but it takes time and education. So, here are my thoughts. Obviously, I think that review was so silly. That was a review of someone who did not read or has no reading comprehension, okay? I do think, though, that there is room to argue about whether it was done well, because in the beginning, Elleren's kind of a hard pill to swallow. You recognize that she's going to be the heroine of this story, but you can't really imagine how she gets there. There are also some scenes in which you feel bad for her, and that kind of made me uncomfortable. But I think that, like, for example, she gets bullied pretty badly, actually, and she kind of takes it. A lot of it's physical. A lot of it is like both of her parents are dead. Some kids take the only object that she has from her mother and breaks it, like those kind of things. So things that you feel bad for her, but also she kind of frames it as, I'm being punished because of who I am. And when she doesn't quite connect that with, like, yes, but you are also hating people because of who they are, like, it kind of makes you uncomfortable. How do you feel sympathy for someone who doesn't have the same sympathy yet for others? Does that make sense? But if nothing else, I think that brings up an interesting conversation to be had. Like, horrible things happen to people with horrible worldviews, and how do you deal with that? I feel like a lot of times now, authors are so scared of this kind of backlash of being called racist or whatever it is, that we tend to get a lot of books with very black and white depictions of right and wrong, and we don't often see the transition, or if we do, the transition is pretty seamless. So I thought that even though you can argue whether or not it was done well, I'm at least thankful that this book made it a little more complex. I think that the only book that comes to mind right now that does that, where it discusses racism but in a very complex and real life way, is the Legendborn series, which is what I love. And I think that how Tracy writes that within a fantasy setting, perfection. I think done better than Black Witch. I'm also on the team of, I think it's a bit heavy-handed. It's very obvious that this book is about unlearning prejudices. As other reviewers have said, it is very obvious that she is on an arc of unlearning, and you can't expect her to just show up to university and be like, oh my gosh, there's so many different people here that I've been raised to hate, but wow, they're just people like me. Peace on earth. Let's all be friends. Like, I was maybe a little uncomfortable with how much she also had to go through hardships because of other people's prejudices towards her. That I don't think is a cancelable offense. I think that was just Laurie trying a little too hard. But now the books are out. Let's talk about the series as a whole. Okay, here's my pitch for why you should read The Black Witch. Whenever I reference yearning, I often reference Cassie Clare. Cassie Clare is present in this book. Like, her spirit, her yearning spirit is within these pages. We have Elleren, who goes to school. Within her society, specifically her like race, the mages, it feels like a very religious society. So if you're kind of interested in that, like trying to leave a church, like it's kind of that feeling, right? Where her culture is all encompassing. Her belief system is all encompassing. So leaving that means leaving all of her loved ones and everything she's ever known, right? So within her race, within her culture, they have a lot of really weird bloodline beliefs and stuff like that. So she is kind of marrying age. So there's a lot of pressure on her to get married, especially with her grandmother being such an important person. So we very quickly meet our first love interest named Lucas, who we know right away is not going to be the one. He's kind of smarmy. He's very arrogant. He's very powerful. He's very handsome. He's got a right to be arrogant, okay? But we immediately don't like him. But we also meet Ivan. I call him Ivan. I don't actually know how you pronounce his name. But we meet another boy while she is being punished. She has to work in the kitchens for some reason. She gets like in a fight or something, and now she has to work in the kitchens. Or maybe she doesn't have any allowance. I forget what's going on. But anyway, she's forced to work in the kitchens with a bunch of other people who do not like her, including Ivan. And we know We know. When we meet Ivan, yeah. When I say the amount of yearning in this book, especially when it comes to Ivan, the way that he is described, the searing eye contact, the longing stares, it is unparalleled. Like, I have not felt that way in so long. A book has not made me feel like that in a really long time, and I miss it. If you are looking for the yearn, oh my God. The first book, I would say, the second book even, I would say, top tier yearning. It's a forbidden love. And you know what I like about their relationship is that he is constantly calling her out on her bullshit. Like, their relationship is very slow burn because she will say a prejudiced thing and he won't just be like, oh, my racist girlfriend. He will be like, Ellerin, what are you saying? Like, think about what you just said. Take a step back. Like, he's such a part of her learning process. It's really, yeah, I really appreciated them. So the first two books, I think, were chef's kiss, other than the fact that, again, heavy-handed. You could argue the way that she is treated, the way that she unlearns. I'm not saying it was written perfectly. Then the curse strikes again. We have the beginning of the end. Book 3. Now, I'm gonna be real. Is my camera picking that up? They just started construction. This book is cursed. Oh my God, I'm gonna pause this. I'm gonna come back when they're done with construction. I don't know if you can hear it, but I can and I can't. So, see you in a sec. Okay, crisis averted for now. Where even was I? Yeah, the characters are so fun. It's very much a found family kind of situation, but the relationships are complicated because there is this underlying prejudice that kind of everyone holds. It's sort of the way that even people, like, even when I see on the internet people who are like, I have unlearned, I'm like a MAGA convert, there's still a part of me that's like, yeah, but you were MAGA once, you know? The friendships are kind of constantly dealing with that of like, you spent a lot of your life hating me and it's really difficult to trust someone like that. And so again, it's not easy. It doesn't make everything really black and white. So I appreciated it. Oh my gosh, there are stakes. There's a prophecy. Again, like, everything is forbidden love. There's also a part of the mage marriage ceremony is something called wand fasting. So it's like a kind of irreversible process of you are bound to a person, and how can Ellerin escape that fate? And honestly, a lot of her unlearning was from her literally going to the library. She just read books. You can learn a lot from the people around you and experiences and seeing the humanity in other people, but you should also be putting in your own time, not using other people's kind of emotional labor. And she does that. She reads history from all different sources and realizes that, wow, we all kind of have a different take, and it's my job to come up with my own opinion and not just listen to what I've been raised with and all these. Anyway, guys, the first two books are fantastic. The third book, oh, this is where I was before I was interrupted. The third book. Now, I'm going to be real honest with you. I actually kind of enjoyed the third book, but this is where it takes a really big turn because we do eventually have a love triangle situation, and normally I choose. I would never be stuck in a love triangle. I choose. Okay? This was a book that I think everyone kind of felt this way. Book 3 flipped everything on its head, and all of a sudden, the choice was not so easy, let's just say. A lot of people didn't like it because it was mainly focused on the relationship. The series actually kind of took a pause because we needed to take some time to prepare for basically an epic battle that's going to happen. So a lot of it was just kind of learning more about the magic and the lore, and some characters, because of that, had to be absent, so the kind of found family wasn't really there, and it was really focused on the relationship of one particular pairing. And I can't confirm it, unfortunately. I've only seen people talk about, I haven't seen Lori talk about it. Allegedly, this was meant to be a trilogy. And I think if she had made this a trilogy and just wrapped everything up with a book 3, I wouldn't be making this video right now. But because it got pushed to being a 5-book series, she had to expand and make this weird third book so that we could launch into like a whole nother arc. This is where the downfall begins. I'm going to give you the rating scale, okay, I'll put it on screen as well. But Black Witch came out in 2017. It is sitting at a 4.1. Iron Flower came out in 2018, sitting at a 4.3. So normally with series, I feel like the books tend to get better ratings because the people who like the series are people who are going to be continuing reading the books, and so they'll rate the books higher. Like if you hated book 1, you aren't going to read book 2 and give a bad review, you know? So that's a pretty normal trajectory, right? 4.1 to 4.3. The Shadow Wand came out in 2020, is sitting at a 4.07. So pretty solid. Okay, the third one, like I said, it had some haters. Okay. Then 2 years later, The Demon Tide comes out, book 4, sitting at a 3.84. Final book, Dryad Storm, came out a few months ago in 2025, 3 years in between books 4 and 5, sitting now at a 3.21. Full disclaimer, I haven't read the 5th book. I haven't read the final book because of what happened in book 4. I'm still shaken by this, shaking and quaking. I'm so upset about this book. I truly believe that whoever made the call to extend this from a trilogy to a 5-book series with all of these little novellas, they have some questions to answer. I really think this would have been a god tier trilogy. I stand by that. But again, this is a cursed series. Let's talk about book 4 and the author's choice that killed this series. So this is where we're going to get into spoilery. I will have a timestamp down below. I'm going to give you some non-spoilery things that I also didn't like about the 4th book, and then I will give you a fair warning for the spoiler section. Book 4, we're coming off of a kind of shaky reception to book 3 because we really, again, kind of sidestepped so that we could spend time with Elren, learning about the magic, learning more about the history and the prophecy, essentially getting ready for the takedown, this rebellion, this huge war that is going to be happening in books 4 and 5. So we enter into book 4 with so many POVs. The previous 3 books had really only been Elren, and then occasionally I think Ivan got a POV, and I think once or twice maybe Lucas got a POV, but it really was Elren and then these occasionally 2 boys that have been floating around. Tight, cohesive. There were other characters that you got to fall in love with, but we were seeing it through Elren's eyes. Book number 4. Lori realized, whether it was conscious or subconscious, she realized that she is damn good at writing forbidden romance and yearning. And so why not just repeat the process a million times? So now every character, I'm not kidding you when I say every character has to fall in love with someone that they can't be with. Every single person. So for example, we have Elren's brother. Who's he gonna fall in love with? But an enemy soldier. We have like all these random people as well. Like we have her werewolf friend falls in love with somebody who, you know, she's supposed to marry a werewolf because she's like a werewolf princess. And so when she falls in love with someone who isn't a werewolf, bad things happen, right? It's every single character falls in love with someone they can't be with, and we have to read about it. Suddenly we're going off in all these different directions. We have so many POVs, and it feels like because it's exactly the same formula, that like intense yearning and that just like hopelessness of this love got stale. And it got boring. It really felt like the exact same story, just in a slightly different font. Because beat for beat, this like forbidden love thing was happening. And it was so frustrating, and it just stalled the plot because we had to suddenly see her brother learn how to shoot a gun or something. Like there was just so many side quests that we had to go on in order to just get stuff done. And it was really, really frustrating to the point where I kind of forgot what we were even trying to do. I mean, if you want to like microdose forbidden love and yearning, like the book will do it for you. Because she wrote the found family and all the characters so well in the first 2 books, I really did still have a connection with all of them. Like I wanted Elren's brother to be so happy. I wanted the werewolf girl to be so happy. You were rooting for these characters, but at the same time you were just like, I love you, but I do not want to hear about your boy problems right now. I want to overthrow this racist government. Is that too much to ask? So that was kind of the underlying main issue with the story. But what actually killed the story is the choice that she made. That is a huge spoiler. So I'm going to put timestamps down below. Yeah. I'm going to put timestamps down below. Make the choice. Make the choice if you're going to read. Honestly, like, please try the first 2 books, especially if you are looking for a fantasy romance. I wouldn't call this a romantasy. I think it becomes romantasy, but the first 2 books are more fantasy and like the world building focus. If you're looking for a fantasy with romance with a hell of a lot of yearning, The Black Witch and Iron Flower, please give it a try. For me, just give it a try. If you don't want to know what happens in the 4th book, please leave now. Thank you. Timestamps down below. You ready? Diabolical is all I can say about what she did for the 4th book. I mentioned that there is a love triangle. She spent the first 2 books making us fall head over heels in love with Ivan and his longing stares, Ivan and his tragic backstory, Ivan and his just empathy and patience and kindness and bravery and oh my God, dream boy, okay? Ivan. She spends the entirety of book 3 making us fall in love with Lucas. Lucas, who is secretly great. Surprise, isn't actually a racist, arrogant fuck. And he pushes Elren to be the best version of herself. And yeah, book 3, like I said, turned everything on its head because all of a sudden you realize that Lucas was a really good match for her. Like, even down to their magic matching well together. That's kind of part of how the yearning just feels so good, is that there's kind of an element of their magic also matching. And so with both Lucas and Ivan, the way that she just describes how their magic calls to each other as well is really beautiful. You realize that like Lucas would be such an incredible, wonderful life partner for her. And you start to question, is Ivan just sort of like this tragic love story that's gonna play out? Like, is he really that good for her? Like, can't we just all fall in love with each other? Like, what's going on? We get to book 4 with genuinely no way to choose. It's not quite on par with what happens with A Clockwork Princess, because Lucas and Ivan never get along. The whole thing with infernal devices? Why can't I remember that? The Clockwork Princess series, right? The amount of pain that love triangle puts you through is that it's actually a love triangle in which the 2 boys genuinely love and care for each other. Lucas and Ivan don't really. They only tolerate each other because they both love Elren. It's slightly less painful than Clockwork Princess, but still, going into the 4th book, it's like the joke of I need somebody to die because I can't choose. Lori Forrest kills Lucas. Lucas sacrifices himself so that Elren and Ivan can live. He literally, I believe, gets burned alive. Like, he just gets toasted. What the fuck? She spent... How long is book 3? Hold on. Book 3 is 554 pages. She spent 554 pages making us fall in love with Lucas, realizing what a wonderful person he is, just to kill him? Just to kill him so that Ivan, who by the way isn't really present in book 3 because he has to go off and do something else. We haven't seen Ivan in a really long time. So our love of him, it was just diabolical. So let me see if I can find any reviews. So I'm gonna go to book 4 and read you some of the top reviews just as an example. Okay, for example, here's a review. This is 2 stars by Holly. Thank you, Holly. First, I'm a huge Black Witch fan. I've been telling everyone to read these books and I was eagerly waiting for this release, and I'm so disappointed. I hate to leave a negative review, but I appreciate a kind and honest review as an avid reader myself. So here we go. Demon Tide, book 4, has 18 separate POVs. Thank you for counting those, Holly. 18 POVs. Insanity. Some by very, very minor side characters, and some by completely new characters. It read more like a collection of short stories or even fan fiction, and actually did very little to advance the plot or storyline. It needed ruthless editing to eliminate large chunks of unnecessary content. Yes, we spend less than 30% of this book with the main character. and by the end of the book, she is mostly where she began. Her love triangle is painfully resolving, though it's written so ambiguously, the reader isn't quite sure what happens. It wasn't a very satisfying read, still so many unanswered questions, very little progress. With only one book left in the series, I've lost confidence that the author will be able to write a believable and compelling conclusion from a series that started out so strongly. Demon Tide flounders. This book is by Tin, 2 stars. This book is not fun for fans of Lucas. Why did he have to die? He could have lived and helped them fight the war. I'm a big fan of Lucas's gray morality. He was written to be more complex than Ivan. I don't know what's wrong with Goodreads. It's cutting off everybody's review. But anyway, it was rough. It was also written like he died in such a big, crazy, unbelievable way that so many people were holding out hope he didn't die because he was literally like burnt alive. So I don't really think we ever saw a body. And when you don't see a body, you hold out hope. But apparently, according to book 5, he is no longer with us. He is truly, truly gone. Apparently, he comes back as a ghost for a sec to be like, Elren, I love you and I want you to be happy, so go be with Ivan. So honestly, once she killed off Lucas, like most of these reviews, this is from Liv, who says, I also will never let go of what was done to Lucas. Whether you were team Ivan or Lucas, I think we can all agree that that ending was not what he deserved. After 3 books of character redemption and truly expressing romantic connections with Elren, it was a severe waste of character to kill him off in such a poorly written way. Not to mention, Elren's descent into such an unlikable character in this book, we never actually see her grieve for anyone who has died. Elena says, I was honestly never on Team Lucas or a fan of love triangles, so it pains me to say that I eventually started to like the guy, only for shit to hit the fan. Also, what exactly was the whole point of Lucas doing that towards the end? Still not exactly sure, and the pieces of the puzzle do not fit in my brain. Tyler says, I never write reviews, but I just have to say, what the fuck? The series is good, this book is not. It was just so disappointing for so many people. A lot of the reviews say that the first half of the book was like a 3.5 star and the last half of the book was a 1. I just don't know what happened, and I think it's really interesting that this is when we start to see bigger time slots between releases of the book. So for books 1, 2, and 3, it was essentially it was 2017, 2018, and then 2020 for the 3rd book. But we were getting novellas in between. But for the last 2 books, we had a 2-year gap between books 3 and books 4, but we had a 3-year gap and it kept getting pushed back. I honestly thought it was going to come out in 2026. I was surprised to see that it came out in 2025. We had a huge gap for the 5th book, and I'm scared to read it. So let's talk about the final book of this cursed series. So I'm going to read you some reviews. This is the final book, The Dryad Storm, sitting at a 3.21 star rating with 3,602 reviews. This is the finale, came out January 7th, 2025. It is 752 pages. This is the longest book in the entire series. When you see them lined up on bookshelves, it is thick and apparently not good enough. Not good enough. All right. So this is one of the top liked comments. This is by Marion, and it is 2 stars, and it was written 5 days after the book came out. Okay. Heartbroken. Crying face. I've loved this series, but I'm so disappointed with this book and the book prior. The writing fluctuates between overly descriptive, poorly edited, and in general, repetitive to the point ad nauseum. Despite Elren being the primary focus for so long, it seems like at some point her story got completely muted in favor of telling us about a million other characters who magically, no pun intended, have the exact same story. The author is overall a very good writer, and there are some scenes where I remembered that this was a series I adored, but for the most part, it needed huge parts of the book just cut out and implied. Some people are DNFing it at 40% because it just feels like it's Avengers where, quote, everyone is super hot and super powerful. Book 4 was weak, but this book, ... such a shame. Someone said that this is a highly stressful and intense book. Bad things happen so constantly that we hardly ever get to catch our breath, unless some characters are taking a horny break. But also, for how intense and bad things get, the resolutions seem fast and weirdly tidy. Oh, I'm not gonna read that, but oh my god, I just got a spoiler. Oh. Okay. Oh, okay. This is a good review. This is by Karen. I'm going to skip quite a lot of it, but the first 3 books were nothing short of brilliant. The 4th book is where the shit show started. Instead of further developing Elren into the warrior she was, she became a powerless thing and an annoyance. The book focused on all the side characters. Tristan's side story was the only redeeming arc in that book and should have been a novel of its own. Tierney's side story, again, a perfect novel opportunity wasted. In the end, this book ended up being a huge story of hookups and digressing from the main storyline. The underlying theme of love to heal fractions fell flat. And then this book. I nearly DNF'd it 10 times. I think the author should have had the guts to make this a threesome. Lucas, Ivan, and Elren. I mean, considering she had the guts to tackle the racism and bigotry theme, why chicken out on the threesome? The review continues saying, I do not blame the author for all these F-ups. I blame her editor, who should be fired. All of these reviews are saying like, I'm devastated. I started this series 6 years ago. I'm so disappointed. I love the first 3 books. This was such a struggle to get through. I'm so disappointed. I waited with anticipation. The only important death of a major character took away the wrong individual. Yeah, so for the amount of death that happens in this series, the only main character that dies is... And people argue that like, damn, of all the characters you could have killed, Anyway, so will I read the 5th book? I'm such a completionist. I really want to, but I would want to start the series over again, and that would be nearly 3,000 pages, with half of those being the 2 books that I didn't enjoy. It's just so sad. Everyone agrees, like all of the reviews are saying the same thing, that the first 3 books in this series were so great. And I just want to know, like, why did it get expanded? Again, it's alleged. I don't know if it was meant to be a trilogy, but it really should have been. And we could have continued the world with those novellas, I think, but it's just really disappointing, especially for a series to be demonized and basically canceled before it even came out, for it to rise from the ashes and have such a devoted fandom for the first 3 books, only to have that fandom stand there in the ashes of a series that burned itself to the ground. I just wanted to make this to implore you to read the first 2, if not 3 books. And if you've read the 5th book, could you let me know if I should do it? Like, I'm guessing not, but you know that I'm a completionist. I'll always wonder, should I leave it at that? Should I leave it as I always wonder or not? Another one of my favorite series of all times, The Gilded Wolves. I did not like the last book, or I didn't like the ending of the last book. So I know that I can survive a bad ending, but to survive a bad 2/5 of a series, that's asking a lot, especially when the last book is nearly 800 pages. So that is my story. I will be so interested if she writes anything else. I will absolutely read her work again, but to go from such a high to such a low, it's just very painful. So let me know your thoughts. Can we talk about it? Because I know that I've mentioned it a couple years ago and a lot of people were like, yeah, no one ever talks about this series. It's so good. So I know that people who watch this channel have enjoyed the series, and I just would love to know how you're doing. Are we okay? Sending love to you. And should I read the 5th book? I don't know how to end this video because I'm very sad, and I've also been just kind of not reading really great books lately, so I feel like this is a punch in the gut that a series that I should have been so excited for the finale of this year, I'm just so not interested. Yeah, so let's commiserate in the comments. Do you have any other? I know that the, what was it called? I'll put it up here. It's a French series. I know that this was another one where people really disagreed with the ending, to the point where the author had to delete her social media because people were so upset about it. I do really blame the publishers and the editors involved in this, because I truly believe if someone had sat down and said, trilogy, keep it succinct, wrap up Elren's story, I would not be talking to you today. I would be telling you about how incredible this trilogy was. But instead, we had to get books 4 and 5, and it descended into chaos. So just thank you to Lori for writing 3 really good books that I have reread. Like, that's a big thing for me. I don't reread books that often, or at least I try to wait like years in between. I reread The Black Witch probably within the same year even, I think. So yeah, thank you to the author for at least writing a series that I would reread. I'm just gonna forget that book 4 happened, And I'm not gonna, I don't know about book 5. So give me your opinions down below. I'm gonna go edit this up for you and try to find a good book to read next. Give me your yearning recommendations for the love of God. I am dying here. I yearn for the yearn. Okay? Let me know. And love to you always. Hope you're doing well. Hope all of your favorite series end on a high note. Can't wait to see what Lori does next. So, signing off. See you next time. Bye.